The first laugh was a sharp, derisive snort, cutting through the thin, reedy, almost mournful notes of his worn-out violin. It wasn't loud, not a booming roar, but in the cavernous, echoing expanse of the subway station, a vast, tiled tomb of urban noise, it resonated with a chilling clarity, bouncing off the grimy tiles and concrete pillars, amplifying its cruel intent. Then came the whispers, the snickers, the open, unmasked mockery, spreading like a contagion through the passing crowd, like a pack of hyenas circling their prey, their cruel eyes glinting in the dim, flickering fluorescent light that seemed to cast long, distorted shadows. Leo, his fingers stiff with cold, the joints aching with a persistent dull throb, his shoulders hunched against the indifferent, relentless rush of the morning commute, felt the familiar prickle of shame, a burning heat rising in his cheeks, despite the biting chill that permeated the underground air, a cold that seemed to seep into his very bones. He adjusted the tattered case at his feet, its velvet lining faded to a dull, sickly green, threadbare in places, its surface scarred with countless scuffs and scratches, each one a testament to a forgotten struggle, a silent chronicle of his decline, a map of his descent. A few coins, glinting dully under the harsh, unforgiving lights, lay scattered within, a meager testament to hours of ignored effort, a mocking tally of his failure, a stark reminder of his dwindling worth, his diminishing place in the world. He was a ghost in the urban machine, a discordant note in the city's relentless symphony of footsteps and distant rumbling trains, a forgotten melody in a world that only listened to the loudest, most insistent sounds, the clamor of commerce and ambition. But today, the laughter felt sharper, more personal, more targeted, a direct assault on his fragile spirit, threatening to shatter the last fragile remnants of his resolve, to break the very spirit that kept him standing, to silence him completely, forever. They laughed at the busker. They hadn't heard the song yet. They had no idea what was coming, what raw, unbridled emotion was about to be unleashed, what profound truth was about to be spoken through the language of pure sound. For years, Leo's world had been a vibrant tapestry woven with the rich, complex, and intricate threads of classical music. He was more than just a musician. He was a prodigy, a rare talent, a virtuoso whose fingers danced across the fretboard with a breathtaking agility, a fluid grace that seemed almost supernatural, as if guided by an unseen force, coaxing forth melodies that could stir the soul, bring tears to the eyes, or ignite a forgotten passion deep within the listener. A spark. His name, Leonid Volkov, had once graced concert programs in prestigious halls across the continent, from the grand, gilded opera houses of Vienna, where his notes soared to the vaulted ceilings, to the hallowed stages of Carnegie Hall, where legends were made. He had been hailed as the next great master, a generational talent, his future a glittering path paved with accolades, artistic triumph, and the adoration of millions, a destiny seemingly assured, a life of endless possibility stretching before him. He had studied at the finest conservatories, his days filled with the rigorous discipline of practice, hours upon agonizing hours perfecting every nuance, the intellectual challenge of composition, painstakingly crafting new worlds of sound, the exhilarating thrill of performance, each note a step closer to perfection, a communion with his audience. But life, as it often does, had a cruel, unexpected twist, a brutal, unforeseen detour that ripped his world apart, leaving him shattered and adrift. A devastating hand injury, a freak accident involving a careless taxi and a slippery curb, a moment of inattention that cost him everything, had stolen his gift, leaving his once nimble fingers stiff, clumsy and agonizingly unresponsive, mere caricatures of their former glory, betraying him at every turn. The tendons severed, the nerves crushed, the intricate network of muscle and bone that had once been his conduit to the divine, now a broken, unresponsive mess, a cruel prison for his artistic soul, a constant source of physical and emotional pain. The music, his very language, his soul's expression, his reason for being, had been ripped from him, leaving behind a deafening, agonizing silence, a void that echoed with the ghost of melodies past, a phantom limb of sound. The despair that followed was a black hole, a crushing void that swallowed his career, his considerable savings, his very identity, leaving him adrift and lost in a sea of hopelessness. He lost his luxurious apartment, a sanctuary filled with the echoes of his music. His fair-weather friends vanished like smoke, evaporating with his fame, leaving him utterly alone. And his purpose, once so clear and vibrant, dissolved into a formless, terrifying emptiness, a terrifying abyss. Leonid Volkov, the celebrated violinist, became just Leo, another nameless face swallowed by the city's indifferent maw, clutching a violin that now felt like a cruel mockery of his past, a constant reminder of what he had lost, a heavy burden, a symbol of his brokenness. Busking wasn't a choice, it was a desperate, humiliating last resort, a battle against starvation, yes, but also a desperate, unspoken plea to the universe, a stubborn, defiant refusal to let the music die completely, to let the last embers of his artistic soul be extinguished, to surrender to the silence. He clung to the fragile hope that somewhere, in the vast, uncaring expanse of the city, amidst the ceaseless noise and hurried lives, someone, perhaps just one person, might still hear the echo of the artist he once was, the ghost of his former glory, a whisper of the magic he once commanded, a recognition of the soul he still possessed. The subway station was his office, his stage, his purgatory. It was a subterranean world, perpetually dim, perpetually damp, smelling faintly of old metal, forgotten dreams, and the stale breath of countless commuters. The air was a suffocating blend of stale exhaust fumes from the trains, damp concrete, and the metallic tang of ozone and rust. A noxious cocktail that clung to his clothes and permeated his lungs, a constant assault on his senses. The constant roar of the arriving and departing carriages was a relentless assault on his ears, a deafening cacophony that drowned out his melodies, making his music feel utterly insignificant, a futile whisper against a hurricane, a fragile butterfly against a storm, easily crushed. The faces that passed him were a blur of indifference, 1,000 hurried footsteps echoing the relentless march of time, each step a reminder of the lives that moved on, with purpose and destination, while his stood still, trapped in a timeless purgatory, a forgotten statue. Businessmen in crisp suits averted their gaze, their briefcases swinging like impenetrable shields against human connection, their eyes fixed on their smartphones, their minds on their next meeting, their next deal, their next acquisition, their world entirely separate from his. Students, headphones clamped over their ears, lost in their own worlds of music and podcasts, navigated around him as if he were an inconvenient obstacle, a crack in the pavement, a piece of urban debris to be avoided, a nonentity utterly beneath their notice. Mothers with strollers pulled their children closer, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and pity, quickly hurrying past, as if his very presence was contagious, a disease to be avoided, a blight on their perfect day, a lesson in what to fear. He was a ghost in plain sight, a shadow that no one dared to acknowledge, a problem to be circumvented, a stain on the pristine urban landscape that needed to be ignored, erased, rendered invisible. Every averted glance, Every hurried step away, every dismissive wave, every tightening of a jaw, every quickened pace. It was a tiny, insidious cut, a fresh wound to his already raw spirit, chipping away at his dignity, eroding his self-worth, leaving him hollowed out, a mere shell of his former self. He felt a profound loneliness he had never known, a chilling, absolute isolation that no amount of money, no amount of power could ever buy or alleviate, a solitude that pierced him to the bone, colder than any winter night. This wasn't just about being ignored. It was about being unseen. It was about being utterly, completely erased from the collective consciousness of humanity, reduced to less than nothing. A forgotten whisper in the wind, a fleeting shadow. The weight of his non-existence was crushing, a physical pressure on his chest that made each breath a struggle, each beat of his heart a painful reminder of his dwindling existence, his fading relevance, his slow, agonizing disappearance. Today, the cold seemed to bite deeper, seeping into his very bones, a persistent chill that spoke of profound vulnerability, of a body slowly shutting down, surrendering to the elements, losing its fight against the relentless urban environment. The hunger gnawed more fiercely, a burning ache in his stomach that made it impossible to focus on anything else, a constant, nagging reminder of his desperate situation, a relentless torment that consumed his thoughts. And the indifference of the crowd felt heavier than usual, a suffocating blanket of apathy, a palpable wall between him and the rest of the world, impenetrable and cold. He had been playing a simple, melancholic folk tune, one that required less dexterity, less precision, a concession to his injured hand, a compromise he detested but accepted, a shadow of his former brilliance, a pale imitation of his true art. It was a tune that usually garnered a few sympathetic glances, perhaps a tossed coin or two, a small acknowledgement of his presence, a fleeting moment of connection, a brief flicker of humanity. But not today. Today, a group of young men, probably college students, loud and boisterous, their voices echoing with youthful arrogance, their faces flushed with easy confidence, had stopped near him. They weren't just ignoring him. They were actively, cruelly mocking him, making him the target of their cruel amusement, a spectacle for their entertainment. One of them, a tall, lanky boy with a cruel smirk plastered across his face, his eyes glinting with malice, mimed playing an air violin, exaggerating his movements, making a ridiculous, off-key humming sound, a grotesque parody of Leo's own playing, a performance of mockery designed to wound. His friends laughed, loud, booming laughs that echoed off the tiled walls, amplifying his humiliation, making it reverberate through the entire station, a chorus of derision that seemed to mock his very existence. "Give it up, Grandpa!" one of them yelled, his voice laced with contempt, with a casual cruelty that stung more than any physical blow, more than any insult, piercing his soul. "Get a real job! You're terrible! You're an embarrassment! You're just taking up space!" Another threw a crumpled piece of paper into his open case, a dismissive gesture that felt like a slap in the face, a final insult, a symbol of his worthlessness, a literal piece of trash. The laughter intensified, a chorus of derision that seemed to vibrate through the very ground beneath him, shaking his resolve, threatening to shatter him completely, to break the last thread of his spirit. Leo's fingers faltered, his bow scraping against the strings, the melancholic folk tune dissolving into a discordant squeak, a pathetic whimper, a broken sound, a dying gasp of music. His vision blurred, not from tears, but from the sheer, overwhelming force of his humiliation, a hot wave of shame washing over him, burning his skin, searing his soul. He felt a profound burning shame, a sense of utter worthlessness that threatened to consume him, to extinguish him entirely, to reduce him to nothingness. He was nothing. His music was nothing. His life was nothing. He lowered his violin, the bow slipping from his numb fingers, clattering softly against the worn wood of the instrument. A sound of defeat, a surrender, a final, despairing gesture. The laughter of the students slowly faded as they moved on, their cruel words leaving a bitter aftertaste in the stagnant air, a lingering poison that clung to him, refusing to dissipate. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the distant rumble of an approaching train, a rhythmic reminder of the world moving on without him, leaving him behind, forgotten. Leo stood there, utterly defeated, his head bowed, his shoulders slumped, his body a testament to his broken spirit, a monument to his failure, a statue of despair. The cold seeped into his bones, a persistent chill that spoke of profound vulnerability, of a body slowly shutting down, surrendering to the elements, losing its fight. His spirit, once indomitable, once capable of weathering any storm in the concert halls of the world, once filled with an unshakable belief in his own destiny, felt brittle, chipped away, reduced to a fragile shard by the relentless, dehumanizing tide of indifference. He was about to concede defeat, to pack up his violin, to retreat to the cold, lonely anonymity of the streets, to accept his fate as a broken man, a forgotten artist, a shadow of his former self, a mere echo of what he once was. He could almost hear Marcus Vance's cynical voice in his head, a mocking echo from his past, a cruel whisper of truth. Sentiment is a weakness, Leo. Art is a luxury. Reality is brutal. You are just a commodity, and a broken one at that. Accept your fate. Was it true? Had his stubborn belief in the power of music, in the inherent goodness of people, been nothing but a foolish delusion? A childish fantasy in a harsh, unforgiving world? The thought was a bitter pill to swallow, a poison that threatened to consume him entirely, to extinguish the last spark of his soul, to leave him utterly empty. But then, a flicker, a tiny defiant spark deep within him, buried beneath layers of despair and humiliation, a stubborn ember that refused to die, refusing to be smothered by the ash of his broken dreams. It wasn't hope. Not exactly, not the kind that promised a miraculous rescue, a sudden, easy salvation from his plight. It was something older, more primal, a stubborn refusal to be extinguished, a deep-seated defiance against the forces that sought to crush him, a raw, unyielding will to exist. It was the echo of a promise he had made to himself years ago, when his fingers first learned to dance across the strings, when the music had flowed through him like a divine current, a sacred connection, a profound purpose that transcended mere ambition. It was the memory of his old mentor, a stern but kind man, a maestro who had seen beyond his youthful talent into the depths of his soul, who had nurtured his spirit as much as his skill, who had taught him that music was more than just sound. Leo, his mentor had told him, his voice gravelly with age and wisdom, a voice that resonated with timeless truth. Music isn't just notes on a page. It's soul. It's the voice of the human spirit. It's the language of the inexpressible, the unspeakable joys and sorrows. And a soul, once awakened, once truly alive, can never truly be still. He looked down at his violin, its worn wood gleaming faintly in the dim, artificial light of the subway station. It was more than an instrument. It was a part of him, an extension of his very being, a silent witness to his triumphs and his tragedies, to every soaring melody and every discordant squeak, to every moment of joy and every moment of despair. He had one song left, one last, desperately, a song he hadn't played in years, a piece of his soul he had kept hidden, guarded fiercely, because it was too painful, too raw, too deeply connected to the life he had lost, to the dreams that had been shattered, to the man he used to be, a sacred, forbidden melody. It was the song, the one he had composed in the heady days of his youth, a complex, soaring melody that demanded every ounce of his skill, every fiber of his being, every drop of his remaining strength, every last ounce of his spirit, a testament to his genius. His injured hand throbbed, a dull, persistent ache that had become a constant companion, a nagging reminder of his limitations. But a stubborn resolve hardened his jaw, a fierce determination ignited in his eyes, a fire that burned away the cold, a defiant spark in the darkness. He would play it, one last time, for himself, for the ghost of the artist he once was, for the possibility, however faint, however remote, that someone, somewhere, might still hear, might still feel, might still remember the power of true music, the truth of his soul, the echo of beauty in a broken world. He slowly, deliberately, with a reverence born of desperation and a profound sense of purpose, raised the violin to his chin. The worn wood felt familiar against his cheek, a comforting presence, a connection to his past, a bridge to his former self, a touchstone. He took a deep, shaky breath, the cold air burning his lungs, a sharp, painful reminder of his physical state. But he pushed through it, focusing only on the music. His fingers, stiff and protesting, aching with the effort, found their positions on the strings, a muscle memory that defied his injury. A testament to years of relentless practice, a miracle of the human body. The first note was tentative, a soft, almost hesitant whisper that seemed to hang in the air, fragile and vulnerable. A single thread of sound in the vast emptiness of the station. It was a single, pure tone, cutting through the distant rumble of the city, a stark contrast to the cacophony that usually filled the station. A quiet defiance, a challenge to the urban roar, a single voice against the storm. It was the opening note of his requiem for a dream, a piece born of his youthful ambition, of his soaring hopes, now imbued with the profound sorrow of his lost career, the weight of his shattered dreams, the echoes of his past glory, a symphony of his life's journey. Then came the second note, and the third, weaving together, gaining strength, gaining resonance, building a fragile bridge of sound, a delicate structure of melody that began to take shape in the air. The melody began to unfold, slowly at first, like a hesitant dawn breaking through the darkest night, painting the sky with soft, ethereal colors. Then building, gathering momentum, blossoming into a complex, soaring symphony, a cascade. His injured hand, usually so clumsy, so unresponsive, seemed to remember, to respond, guided by a force beyond his conscious will, a deeper, primal connection to the music itself, a spiritual force that transcended physical limitations. The pain in his fingers faded, replaced by a surge of adrenaline, a profound focus, a singular purpose that consumed him entirely, body and soul. The music was not just notes, it was a story. It spoke of soaring hopes and crushing despair, of whispered dreams and silent heartbreaks, of the relentless beauty and brutal indifference of life, of the human condition in all its complexity, its triumphs and its tragedy. It was a lament, a protest, a defiant cry, a raw outpouring of his soul, a confession, a prayer, a desperate plea for understanding. It was the language of his soul, finally unleashed, finally heard, finally understood, resonating with a universal truth. One by one, people began to stop. A young woman, rushing past with her phone, glued to her ear, her face a mask of urban detachment, her eyes fixed on some unseen destination, paused, her brow furrowed in concentration, her eyes widening as if she had just heard a ghost, a sound from another realm, a whisper from the divine. A businessman, his face etched with the stress of the day, his briefcase clutched tightly, his shoulders hunched with responsibility, stopped mid-stride, his forward momentum utterly broken, his briefcase forgotten, his mind captivated, his worries momentarily forgotten, replaced by a profound stillness. A group of tourists, chattering loudly in a foreign tongue, their voices a cacophony of excitement, fell silent, their cameras lowered, their expressions shifting from curiosity to awe, a universal language of wonder that transcended their different origin. They didn't just stop, they seemed to be drawn in, pulled by an invisible current, compelled by the sheer raw power of the music, a force that transcended language and culture, reaching deep into their souls, touching something fundamental within them. The harsh fluorescent lights of the station seemed to soften, their cold glare replaced by a warm, almost ethereal glow, casting long, dancing shadows, transforming the mundane into the magical, the metallic tang of the air replaced by the profound, almost spiritual resonance of the melody. A sacred perfume that filled. The distant rumble of trains faded, becoming a mere backdrop to the unfolding masterpiece, a distant hum that only served to highlight the music's clarity, its purity, its undeniable presence. The entire atmosphere of the subway station shifted, transformed by the power of a single, raw, beautiful sound, a moment of unexpected grace, a shared, unspoken miracle. Leo played with a fierce, desperate intensity he hadn't felt in years, an intensity that burned away his pain and his fear, leaving only the pure act of creation, the unadulterated joy of bringing beauty into existence. His eyes were closed, his face a mask of profound concentration, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold, his entire being poured into each note, each phrase, each soaring passage, a conduit for the music. He wasn't playing for money, not anymore. He was playing for redemption, for validation, for the sheer, unadulterated joy of creating something beautiful, something true, something real, something lettered, something that resonated, in a world that seemed to have forgotten beauty and truth, a world that had tried to silence him, to break him, to erase him. The music swelled, filling the vast space, echoing off the tiled walls, reaching every corner, every hidden recess of the station, every weary soul, every forgotten dream, every lost hope. It was a melody that spoke to the universal human experience, the pain of loss, the resilience of hope, the quiet strength found in vulnerability, the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome adversity, to find light in the darkest places. It was a melody that bypassed the intellect and went straight to the heart, stirring dormant emotions, awakening forgotten memories, unlocking hidden feelings, bringing tears to eyes that had long been dry, a profound emotional release. It was a story told in sound, a narrative of struggle and triumph, of despair and defiant beauty, a testament to the indomitable human will, a symphony of resilience. A few people wiped away tears, unashamed of their raw emotion, their faces wet with shared feeling, a silent communion. Others stood motionless, their faces rapt, their expressions a mixture of awe and quiet contemplation. Lost in the music, transported to another realm, another dimension of feeling. A homeless man, usually slumped in a corner, his eyes vacant, his spirit seemingly broken, sat upright, his eyes wide, a flicker of something long lost, something akin to hope. In their depths, a spark of recognition. a brief return to the present. The cynical teenagers who had mocked him earlier, their bravado now utterly deflated, their cruel smirks vanished, their faces now pale with a mixture of shock and perhaps shame, now drawn back by the magnetic pull of the music, stood at the edge of the crowd, their smirks replaced by expressions of stunned silence, their arms crossed, their faces unreadable, perhaps even ashamed. They looked uncomfortable, perhaps even ashamed, confronted by the raw beauty they had dismissed, by the humanity they had scorned, by the undeniable truth of the music. The song reached its crescendo, a powerful, soaring climax that seemed to hang in the air, vibrating with raw emotion, a final defiant cry of beauty, a last lingering note of pure sound, before slowly, gracefully, descending into a soft, melancholic echo, a lingering whisper of sound that faded. The final note faded, leaving behind a profound, almost sacred silence. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The city, for an instant, seemed to hold its breath, captivated by the lingering resonance of the music, by the magic that had just unfolded, by the shared unspoken moment. Then, a single clap, soft, hesitant, then another and another. Soon the entire station erupted in a thunderous wave of applause. It wasn't just polite clapping. It was a roar of genuine appreciation, a spontaneous outpouring of emotion, a collective sigh of awe and gratitude, a recognition of something truly extraordinary, something transformative. People cheered, they whistled, they stomped their feet, a primal expression of their profound reaction, their shared experience, their collective joy. Strangers looked at each other, tears in their eyes, a shared understanding passing between them, a silent acknowledgement of the powerful moment they had just witnessed, a bond forged in shared emotion, a fleeting community. The indifference that had shrouded the station had vanished, replaced by a profound sense of connection, a shared moment of beauty, a collective experience that transcended their individual lives, uniting them in a single powerful emotion, a wave of shared humanity. Leo slowly opened his eyes, his body trembling with exhaustion, his heart pounding a triumphant rhythm in his chest, a drumbeat of vindication, a joyful cadence. He looked out at the crowd, at the faces now filled with respect, with admiration, with something akin to reverence, their eyes shining with unshed tears, their expressions transformed from indifference to awe, from mockery to profound respect. He saw smiles, tears, nods of profound understanding. He saw humanity. He saw himself, reflected in their eyes, not as a broken man, not as a forgotten busker, but as an artist, a true artist, whose soul had finally found its voice again, whose music had touched them all, had awakened something within them. People began to approach him, not with tossed coins, but with outstretched hands, with genuine words of thanks, their voices filled with emotion, their faces radiating gratitude, a profound appreciation. That was incredible. Thank you for that. I needed that more than you know. It spoke to me. I've never heard anything so beautiful. It touched my soul. You are a master, a true artist. They pressed bills into his case, not just crumpled singles, but crisp 10s, 20s, even a few hundreds, a testament to the profound impact of his music, a tangible expression of their appreciation, a heartfelt offering. It was more money than he had made in weeks, perhaps months, but the money, he realized, was secondary. The true currency was the connection, the validation, the profound recognition, the shared humanity, the feeling of being seen and heard, of having touched lives. Then, a man pushed through the crowd, his presence commanding attention, his aura one of quiet authority, a figure of immense importance. He was impeccably dressed, his face lined with age, but his eyes sharp, intelligent, filled with a deep, knowing look, a look that spoke of a shared history, a recognition of true talent, a memory rekindled. He looked familiar, somehow, a ghost from Leo's past, a figure from a forgotten dream, a face from a different life. He held a small leather-bound notebook in his hand, its pages filled with musical notations, a symbol of his profession, a testament to his own dedication to music. "Mr. Volkov," he asked, his voice low, respectful. A voice that carried authority and recognition. A voice that Leo knew. A voice that sent a shiver of disbelief down his spine. "My name is Julian Vance. I'm the director of the City Philharmonic Orchestra. I heard you play many years ago. I thought you were gone, that the accident had silenced you forever, that the music had died with your hand. But that was your requiem for a dream, wasn't it?" I recognized it immediately. "It's unmistakable. No one else could play it like that. It was profound." Leo stared at him, stunned, his mind reeling, struggling to process the impossible reality, the surreal of the moment. The City Philharmonic, the orchestra he had once dreamed of leading, the pinnacle of his ambition, the very summit of his artistic aspirations, a dream he had long ago buried. Julian Vance, a legend in the classical music world, a man he had idolized, a man whose judgment he respected above all others, a figure of immense influence, a gatekeeper to the world he had lost. "Yes," Leo whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion, barely audible, choked with disbelief and hope, a fragile sound. "It was." Julian smiled, a warm, genuine smile, a smile of profound understanding and admiration, a smile that promised a new beginning, a future reborn. "Your hand, Mr. Volkov. I heard about the accident. It was a tragedy that shook the music world, a loss we all mourn. But what you just did, it was breathtaking. It was raw. It was magnificent. It was soul. It was everything music should be. It was a testament to the indomitable spirit. We have a new concert series starting next season. A series dedicated to showcasing resilience, to the power of art, to overcome adversity, to the triumph of the human spirit, to stories of profound courage, of finding light in the dark. We're looking for a guest soloist, someone with a unique story, someone who can truly move an audience, someone who embodies the very essence of what we want to convey, someone who can inspire, who can uplift." He paused, his eyes gleaming with a quiet intensity, a profound offer in his gaze, a life-changing proposition that hung in the air, shimmering with possibility. "We want you, Mr. Volkov. Not just as a busker, not as a broken man, but as the artist you truly are, the master you were always meant to be. We want you to play your requiem on our stage, with our orchestra, to a sold-out hall, to an audience that will hang on your every note, that will be moved to their core, that will witness a miracle. What do you say?" Leo stood there, the weight of the violin suddenly feeling light in his hands, no longer a burden, but a conduit to his destiny, a key to a new future, a symbol of his rebirth. The cold of the station faded into insignificance, replaced by a warmth that spread through his entire being. A warmth that started in his chest and radiated outwards, filling him with a profound sense of peace and joy. The roar of the city, once a symbol of his despair, now seemed to hum with a new, vibrant possibility, a symphony of hope, a chorus of opportunity, a melody of triumph. He had been laughed at, ignored, dismissed, reduced to nothing, his dreams shattered. his spirit almost broken. But in his darkest moment, when he had almost given up, when the silence had threatened to consume him, when he had felt utterly alone, he had played that song. And that song, born of his deepest pain, of his profound loss, had not only reconnected him to his own soul, to his true self, to the artist within, but had opened a door to a future he had never dared to dream of. A future more glorious than his past. A second chance at greatness. The journey from the cold, indifferent subway station to the grand concert hall, from a broken man to a celebrated artist, was a testament to the enduring power of music, the unexpected kindness of strangers, and the unyielding spirit of a man who refused to be silenced, who found his voice even when he thought it was lost forever, who defied all odds, who turned his pain into... The applause still echoed in his ears, not just for the music, but for the profound, unexpected triumph of the human spirit, a symphony of resilience, a chorus of hope, a standing ovation for life itself. And he knew with a certainty that warmed him from the inside out, that this was just the beginning. The next movement of his life's symphony was about to begin, a masterpiece yet to be written, a testament to the fact that sometimes the most beautiful music is born from the deepest silence.